So what happens when a single product, something that is the absolute backbone of a nation's coastal economy, gets thrown into the deep end of the global market? Well, we're about to find out. We're going to dive into India's great shrimp gamble, a story of incredible highs and, some really surprising lows. 67%. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how much of India's entire marine export value comes from one thing: shrimp. This isn't just about business. For millions of people, it's their entire livelihood. I mean, think about it. The fortunes of millions, from the person out on the boat casting a net to the worker in the processing plant. It all rides on the back of this one little crustacean. A good shrimp season means whole coastal towns thrive. It's that important. So when India basically opened the floodgates to the world in 1991, you'd think it would be a simple success story, right? Well, what actually happened is a lot more complicated. It's a puzzle that really reveals a hidden truth about the promise and the peril of globalization. Okay, to really understand the earthquake that was about to hit, we first need to see what the world looked like before the ground started shaking. Let's go back to the pre-1991 era. Things were very, very different. Just imagine your entire business depends on one single product and you're selling it to just one main customer. That was India's reality. Shrimp was the product, and Japan was pretty much the only customer that mattered. It was a relationship of, total dependence. So how do you measure a customer's loyalty in the world of economics? Well, they've got a term for it: market retention probability. It's basically a score that tells you how likely it is your customer will come back and buy from you again next year. A high score means you've got a really stable, loyal partner. And would you look at that? Japan's loyalty score was a staggering 81%. This was the golden part of what you could call a golden cage. Super reliable, super predictable, but it was still a cage. If the Japanese economy so much as sneezed, India's entire shrimp industry could catch a cold. And then, 1991. Everything changed. India made this huge, bold move and swung its economic doors wide open to the rest of the world. The great shrimp gamble was officially on. This decision basically created a perfect natural experiment for researchers. You have the before picture, a closed, stable, kind of predictable market. And then you have the after picture, an open, globalized, and totally different world. The shrimp industry was about to become a case study for everyone watching. At first, it looked like the gamble had paid off big time. I mean, the numbers weren't just good, they were absolutely spectacular. Just look at this jump. Before 1991, growth was chugging along at around 3.5%. After, it rockets up to nearly 6%. The industry was suddenly supercharged. Seriously, it was like they hit the jackpot. More sales, more money, more growth. On the surface, it looked like a flawless victory, a total home run. But just like with any jackpot, you have to read the fine print. And hidden inside this massive boom was a totally new kind of risk, a cost that wasn't obvious right away. So the real question is, was this a nice, smooth ride to the top, or was it more of a roller coaster? And yeah, that's where the story gets really interesting. And here it is. This is the big twist. This chart shows something called the instability index. It's basically a measure of market volatility or how bumpy the ride is. And it nearly doubled. So yeah, the highs were higher, but the lows were way lower, and the ride got a whole lot rougher. The market had become dangerously unpredictable. Now, for the families who actually depend on this industry, this was a massive game changer. That steady little trickle of income they could count on, it was replaced by a fire hose that was sometimes blasting and sometimes completely off. Sure, there was more money overall, but there was also a whole lot more anxiety. So what on earth caused all this new turbulence? To get it, we really need to look at the new map of the global shrimp trade. It looks nothing like the old one. Remember the old map? It was pretty much a straight line from India to Japan. Simple, predictable, and maybe a little too safe. Now this is the new map. It's not a line, it's a spider web. Japan is still a player, but now India is selling to the US, to the EU, and to a whole bunch of other countries. More customers, for sure, but also way more complexity and way more competition. In this new crowded marketplace, India wasn't calling the shots anymore. They were now competing against Vietnam and Ecuador and Thailand. They became price takers instead of price makers. A recession over in Europe or a sudden change in American tastes could now send shockwaves all the way back to the Indian coast.
So, this is the new reality. Richer? Yes, but a heck of a lot riskier. This is the classic double-edged sword of globalization, right here.
It all comes down to a trade-off, and this illustrates it perfectly. On one side, you have the amazing promise of higher growth and all these new markets. But on the other side, you've got the reality of insane instability and intense competition. It's a balancing act that honestly, a lot of industries are still trying to figure out. The researchers who actually studied all this, they put it pretty bluntly. The price of admission to the global market was, for them, a permanent state of instability. So we're left with this really tough question. If you were a shrimp fisher in India, what would you choose? The smaller, steady catch from before, or the chance at a much bigger haul, but out on a much more turbulent sea? It's a question that gets right to the very heart of what it means to be part of our crazy, interconnected world